guys for coming. Yeah, give yourself this is going to be a little bit different than what we usually do, because usually when we do this stuff, it's a huge production, and there's like a back wall of images, and we play games and write jokes for hours, and
there's like a CMC, there's some circus elephants.
yeah. whatever podcast celebrity we can find, we bring in. But this one's a little bit different. We wanted to do something, especially here, because for me this is a home show, even though I haven't lived here in 4 years now. This is still home for me. I don't know how many people are actually from San Francisco here today. It doesn't really matter, because we say we are from the Bay, right? We embrace all of the counties.
Solano.
Wow, that's fucked up, man. E40's from Solano County. You don't care about E40? You can't be saying that shit out loud and be sitting next to me next to black people, because it's fucked up, man. Can't get fucked up like that. But we have a booking agent, because of course we do. And he was like, I think you guys should do something in the Bay Area. We were like, ooh, what should we do? And we were walking somewhere. I can't remember where we were walking. And we were like, we were bitching about Donald Trump. And you were the one that said, is Trump the end of history? And we've kind of been stuck on that topic probably for the last, since we had that talk, I think, somewhere in downtown TJ. So usually I have a teleprompter in front of me when I read the introduction to the show, and I didn't bring it because I wrote it down on this paper, and I'm gonna read it. So I'm gonna read an introduction about what we're gonna talk about, and then I do want to, since we have cordless mics, and I fucking love cordless mics, and he has a show about giving him an argument, I want to ask you guys how you feel about some of these things as well, because these are definitely questions that I don't think we necessarily have the answers to per se. If you watched my show Wednesday morning, Ben jumped in for a big debate between Kuba and Daniel Bessner and who's a fascist, who's not a fascist, should we use the term fascist, all that fun stuff. So, right? That's really what it's. You have fun with that. You call people names in the Twitter comments. So, how did we get here again? Donald Trump, long the embodiment of tabloid excess and reality television spectacle, has transcended the screens that he once appeared on. No longer just a weekly fixture for our junk food consumption of manufactured drama, Trump represents the culmination of a uniquely American fusion of politics and performance. He is the personification of political kayfabe, the old vaudevillian cold, never to break character, never let the audience in on the act. The bearded lady isn't wearing a wig, the strong man isn't faking the lift, the magician isn't holding the secret. And Trump, while wealthy, is no self-made mogul. He inherited his fortune. Trump Tower, adorned in gold, is more facade than foundation. But the public didn't care. They tuned in to see who would be fired next, who would debase themselves for a fictitious position beside the king of kitsch. And when ratings sagged, Trump didn't fade into irrelevance. He pivoted like any seasoned entertainer and ran for president of the United States. The climate was ripe. The neoliberal consensus, entrenched under both Democratic and Republican administrations, had eroded public trust. The promised hope and change of Obama's presidency became, for many, a continuation of the same economic and imperial policies of the Bush era. The Affordable Care Act fell far short of the single-payer systems of Canada or the UK's NHS. Deportations reached historic highs. Bombs still fell abroad on innocent women and children. Wall Street was rescued. Working-class Americans were not. The 2008 financial collapse, a product of deregulated housing markets and financial speculation, devastated millions, Bush may have launched the forever wars and shredded civil liberties through the Patriot Act and the AUMF, but Obama normalized with a wink and a smile drone warfare, mass surveillance, corporate impunity. What then is freedom of speech in an era when the public square is digital and owned by the world's richest men? After 9/11, fear rendered the country malleable. George W. Bush morphed from bumbling buffoon to wartime leader. I, like maybe some people in the crowd tonight, feared a return to Japanese internment, this time targeting Muslims. Instead, we got black sites, we got torture, we got Abu Ghraib. And while liberal America briefly flinched, nothing fundamentally changed. The images were horrific, but the policies remained. Imperialism didn't falter, it adapted. These are not events from some distant, unrecognizable past. This is the America of my lifetime. My daughter, born in 1998, has never known a world without US military occupation in the Middle East. For her generation, it's ambient, an ever-present hum, the murmur that is seldom discussed. Meanwhile, Bush and Michelle Obama can now hug and share candy at inaugurations, their friendships sanitized for mass consumption. A bipartisan portrait, multicultural portrait of the American empire. Back then, we didn't casually refer to US policy as fascist or genocidal, at least not outside radical left or anarchist circles. But now those words echo louder because here we are again. Trump is an avatar of a deeply disillusioned populace, one that recognizes, consciously or not, that both major parties have failed him. Obama didn't drink the water in Flint, Bush sacrificed a generation to an illegal war, and Trump, lacking the polish that we have been trained to accept of trained politicians, becomes legible to some as the everyman, a man who speaks in punchlines, whose bluster mirrors the logic of pro wrestling promos more than policy briefs. In that logic, MS-13, a street-level gang with no real political power, becomes a cartoonish evil. They become a force so terrifying that they must be hunted and deported en masse. The threat is always exaggerated, always radicalized. I ask you in the attendance here, when you exit these doors and head home, will you be looking over your shoulder for MS-13 and Trende Aragua? Or will you be forced to witness the failures of capitalism as more people are forced to live in squalor? So tonight, my friend Ben Burgis and I want to ask a central urgent question. Does Donald Trump represent the end of liberal democracy? In today's political discourse, the label fascist is often affixed to Trump's governing style, speaking a heated debate that juxtaposes American authoritarianism with the fascisms of the 1930s Europe. Scholars like Daniel Bessner urge caution, suggesting that American fascism, if such a thing exists, must be understood on its own terms, not merely as a replay of European history. Others like Chris Hedges argue that Trumpism indeed bears the hallmarks of fascist politics. But as we engage in this debate, we must remember a crucial point. Authoritarianism in America predates Trump. From settler colonial genocide to slavery, from Jim Crow to COINTELPRO, from mass incarceration to the global war on terror, the US state has long rallied on exclusion, violence, and racial hierarchy to secure its dominance. To call Trump an aberration is to obscure the longer continuum. This is not simply a matter of semantics. Equating Trump with Hitler or Mussolini risks flattening history and misidentifying the roots of our crisis. It allows liberals to imagine that restoring normalcy will solve the problem rather than confronting the systemic failures that gave rise to Trump in the first place. Trump is not a disease, he's a symptom. His authoritarianism builds on legal and cultural infrastructures that long predate him. The question isn't just whether Trump is fascist, it's whether American democracy has ever been fully democratic for the marginalized, the colonized, the radicalized. His administration may be the most brazen in wielding executive power, but the tools were already there. The cages were built long before he arrived. So if Trump is removed, will another rise in his place? Can the system that enabled him be reformed from within, or will it take rupture, radical transformation to prevent the next iteration? Trumpism is not a glitch in the system, it is a feature, and that's what we're here to discuss tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, I was saying on social media early today that, like, kind of how I feel about some of those questions about Trump and fascism and liberal democracy really depends a lot on who I'm talking to. By which I mean,
Okay.
if I'm like arguing with other leftists, then in that context, I'll often kind of push back at the fascist analogy. I want to be like sort of more finicky and precise and say, hey, if you're sort of trying to understand Trump's weird all-American kind of authoritarianism through this like analogies to interwar European history, which is essentially what you're doing, we throw around the F word. Does that really obscure more than it clarifies? I also worry that it can lead to this kind of premature and self-fulfilling doomerism that it actually makes people sort of preemptively give up, right?
Really?
Because they think that they've already got, they've already arrived at the worst case scenario, right? Because it's like, well, actually, here, let me just put it like this, right? Like, if you really thought that full-on, literal 1930s fascists had taken power in your country, you wouldn't be going to like Bernie and AOC anti-oligarchy rallies. You wouldn't, you certainly wouldn't be posting on social media about how Trump is a fascist under your real legal name, right? Like, you wouldn't do that, right? You would be either going underground or desperately trying to find a foreign country that would give you asylum, right? And so I think that this is the kind of thing that I say if I'm arguing with other leftists. But then I like start talking to Republicans that they're like, oh no, I think it's actually fine that this dude was like sent off to a Salvadorian torture dungeon for the rest of his life because
You didn't come here the right way.
Yeah, no, it's fine, right? I'm sure they wouldn't say he was MS-13 if they weren't sure. Doesn't matter.
They don't send anyone to El Salvador that didn't do the bad thing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? I started talking to those people in like 30 seconds. I'm like, oh my God, you're a fucking fascist, right? Like, it's just
You sound fascist. Did you do that?
Yeah, I mean,
You ripped his face off like Scooby-Doo. But in all seriousness, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying about the checklist of things that are fascist. But would you also agree, though, that as Americans, we don't know what that's like to flee? Most people in this room, I don't know all of you. I know like 3. And I don't think any of you guys have had to flee.
Sure.
And none of your family has prepared you for the stages of fascism that if this thing happens, make sure you have your documents, or kind of the warning that Kuba was giving to us after the show. But that is a man who fled. His family fled Poland. So do you think part of it too is that even if we saw it, we wouldn't, and because we're all seeing it in real time.
Maybe, but I will say that...
We wouldn't know how to react, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Like, I would understand that if it were just like, oh, people who don't think it's fascism aren't doing this. But like, what confuses me is the people who most loudly say that it is are saying that in public under their full real legal name and not going anywhere, right? Like, which again, I know that can sound really flippant, right? I know it can sound like, like sort of saying, oh, everything's fine, and I actually think like everything is extremely not fine. Right? Like
That's what most of our conversations are about, how not fine everything is.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that certainly you're talking about Cuba. I think certainly something he called correctly was how much worse Trump 1 was going to be.
Trump 2, you mean?
Trump, yeah. Trump 2 was going to be than Trump 1, right? Like I think this is clearly true, right? There is sort of new and dangerous stuff going on. I worry that sort of pat historical analogies that don't quite work might give people a sort of false model of what this is. Like, you know, there can be more than one bad and horrible and scary thing that happens in the world, right? Like, not everything has to be.
Well, are we looking at a kind of an end of history moment, right? If we go back to the end of history as the fall of the Soviet Union, right?
Yeah.
So liberal democracy has won out. Is this the end of liberal democracy as we know it? Because we have to admit that what we see in the United States is not strictly in the U.S., right? There's even with what's going on in Brazil, Bolsonaro is still kind of lurking in the shadows and may return. Duterte has a daughter, and Bongbong Marcos is president of the Philippines. And that's just a few nations. You know, we can go down the list.
Sure.
Erdogan.
So I think there are a couple things going on here.
Sure.
I would say first, the Brazil analogy is really interesting to me, partly because weirdly I like almost moved there twice. It was like a whole thing, but so spent like a lot of time thinking about this. And in some ways, I think like the sort of Brazilian right looks a lot more like classical European fascism than what we have in America, right? You know, you have these right-wing paramilitaries in Brazil that I remember interviewing Glenn Greenwald years ago, and he was like, yeah, these people make like all of the like right-wing paramilitary groups in the U.S. look like ridiculous LARPers.
Well, were they the people that killed?
Marielle DeFranco,
yeah,
exactly right.
Yeah.
Like they assassinate people. They you know, they really like control territory like drug gangs would, right? These are people who are like very linked to the Bolsonaro family. And so in a lot of ways that does look much more like that sort of classical fascist template, that these are your brown shirts or black shirts or whatever. Now, even in Brazil, because it's not a replay, right? I mean, like, new stuff happens in history. But so even in Brazil, you know, it doesn't seem like they had fascism under Bolsonaro, because after all, what happened is his crimes were, you know, exposed by a free press, and he lost a democratic election, and then, you know, an independent judiciary like had him arrested, right? Like, that's in some ways this is a really good progression, and that's an example that might make you think, oh, you know, everything's fine, right? Fukuyama's right after all. Liberal democracy is intact, but then, I mean, I think the bigger thing you're pointing to is like, I think it is true all over the world, right? That you have these more noxious, more brazenly authoritarian kinds of right-wing movements that have been cropping up, I mean, everywhere from, like, you know, Brazil to France, right? I mean, there's like Marine Le Pen, who, you know, is, like, in a lot of ways, the recent stuff with her feels a lot like Trump in between, you know, the two times that he was elected, to, you know, go down, you know, take your pick, right? And, you know, so I think there is like a sort of bigger global problem that's driving all this that does go to the Fukuyama point, right? That, like, so, I mean, I think in some ways, I mean, like, maybe flippantly, like, the end of history was like 2016, right? Like that, like
that felt like a moment, right?
Yeah.
There's Brexit,
yeah.
right? Brexit and Trump, for a lot of people, are a kind of end of history moment. But then, as quickly as those things came, it's almost like they left.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes and no, right? I mean, you know, Britain's still Brexit, right? It's not like they've gone back into the EU, and Donald Trump is president right now. So, in some ways, those things stuck around, and like
But they didn't get another Tory in office, right? I mean, say what you will about Starmer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, right. Like, I mean, we're in the 5 minutes. I don't know. This is always funny to me. I remember in 2008, when Obama was first elected, there's this, don't take this personally, Nick, if you end up listening to this episode, but there's this guy I went to graduate school with, who is a British guy who, like, sort of very smugly congratulated everybody the day after election for rejoining the civilized world. And I just remember thinking, motherfucker, there's been like 6 months in the last few decades that you people haven't been ruled by Tories. Like, I don't understand this. So yeah, right now we're in months like 7 through 9 of that, right? So it's like, yeah, I mean, they have, Starmer's in office right now, but if you actually look at the election numbers, right, when Starmer came in. Like, Starmer got a smaller share of the vote than Jeremy Corbyn did in 2019 when Corbyn was considered to have done so horribly he had to step down as the leader of the Labour Party. And to your point about the rise of the global far right, the only reason that Starmer is prime minister is that the right wing split their votes because the party that's to the right of the Tories like took so much of the vote total, right? That
Germany's got a far right that's popping up. I think we both maybe spoke to the 99 Zoolines guys independently, I think, to talk about the rise of German far right. Do you think that, I do want to put a pin in that, do you think we have a short memory? I don't know how old everybody is in the crowd, and I won't ask everyone's ages. But do you think we have a short memory and we forgot Bush Jr.?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that you were sort of framing all this in terms of that debate between Kuba and Danny, who are both people that I like a lot, and I actually am in the weird position that I think that both of them are sort of half right about this, and I actually agree so hard with both of them about aspects of this. I've actually co-written things with both of them about different aspects of this, right? So it was a really weird debate for me to watch. But
is that why you had to jump in? It was like mom and dad fighting?
Yeah, exactly. I tried turning off the music. Yeah, right. So I think that one part about this that I think Danny is obviously right about is that, and I think you were kind of speaking to in your intro, and it's like, all right, so we've got this kind of immediate constitutional crisis with Trump that he, as we speak, is defying a 9-0 Supreme Court order to bring back the guy who said he accidentally sent to the Salvadorian torture dungeon, and all indications right now are he's not going to do it, and so it's like, all right, that is an immediate constitutional crisis. But I think what Danny is speaking to is it's like, look, this is kind of the culmination of this weird, slow-rolling constitutional crisis that's been going on pretty much since our grandfathers came back from World War II.
That's what he was saying. He's like, I think we've been in a constitutional crisis since 1942, and he's said it before. He's written about it.
Because look, I mean, like it is like you're talking about all this stuff about Bush and Iraq, which is like a culmination of what Danny's talking about. That it's like Congress hasn't declared war since Pearl Harbor, right? Like they've just completely ceded like the constitutional war-making authority to the executive, like all of that joking with Cuba about the deep state, right? I mean, that's like they sort of metastasize into the intelligence agencies, as this completely independent, force, which a lot of libs now are sort of weirdly.
But we love it in movies, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
don't we love seeing movies about the deep state, like these rogue agents that belong to agencies that no one knows about, and then they kill people in black sites when they save some, miscellaneous brown person's life right before they torture their dad.
Yeah,
right? We love those movies.
Sure, yeah. I mean, look, Hollywood has relentlessly been romanticizing this stuff since forever, right? I mean, like this is like you have. I mean, there are a lot, there are like anti-war movies, but it's like, man, it's actually kind of hard to think of an anti-spy movie.
I can't think of Spy Kids. They all kind of spies. They wrote the kids to be spies. But seriously, is it to the point though? And I'm asking this question because I don't know the answer. Do you feel it's to the point where it's normalized, where it's just okay, and it just is?
Well,
and no one really understands the full, like really what happens on these black sites, right? Like we didn't understand what was going on in Guantanamo until we saw this much, and for 5 minutes people cared, right?
Yeah.
And then something else happened. A Kardashian showed a titty or something, and people just stopped caring. I'd look at that.
It's about right. It's about how.
Yeah.
Right? More or less.
Don't gaze into the Kardashian titty. But seriously, it doesn't. It's not. I don't think it doesn't take much, because I think people care, right? When we saw young people in cages, cats flocked to borders to do what they could.
I think they care a bit. I think it is very hard to get people to care about foreign policy in general, about anything that's happening to people who seem scary, who are a far, long way away, right? I mean, I think most people are going to be much more focused on things that they think will affect them. I mean, that it just is what it is. I mean, I think that's kind of the human condition. It's not even like a special defect of Americans or anything, right? I mean, like that's just kind of the deal, right? That if you're not sort of something I always think, I have mixed feelings about, but I can sometimes even find comforting is remembering that it's like, if you are somebody who obsessively follows politics, you're a weirdo, right? Like most human beings aren't like that. Right?
Leave me out of this. Man, I started to make my living off this.
Yeah, well, me too. I mean, I have
This and dick jokes.
But it's like, yeah, look, thank God they exist, right? It's like they're supporting both of us, but like you're an outlier, right? If you're like that, right? Most people have, that's not like they're completely apolitical, right? They have political reactions to things that happen. They have political impulses, but they don't spend all this time thinking about it that like you do if you're the sort of person who watches left.
They probably have families that love them.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard about that.
Pets and shit. There's couples here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But, so I think that the less engaged you are with politics, the more likely it is that what's going to grab you is stuff that is closer to you, is more likely to affect you, right? So stuff like, I mean, look, you were sort of bringing up, the Bush comparison, and I think that if you're going to sort of ask the is Trump a fascist question, or maybe like arguing about whether the word applies isn't the most useful way to go about it, because like ultimately if you use the word, you're making a certain kind of analogy. No analogy is perfect, right? Like I think it gets.
But would you agree?
I think it gets very easy to get lost, like what the real question was, right? So it's like if you're going to ask me sort of like, is Trump like what? I think what you're really getting at, right? Like when you ask that question, like is Trump this sort of alarming development that like says something about the decline and possible death of liberal democracy? I think that's what we're really talking about.
Well,
Right?
if you're gonna put it that way. Smart guy. Yes.
Like, I think that like, I don't think you can really do the is Trump a fascist question without starting with the was Bush a fascist question, because like, I remember people saying that all the time.
I remember that. I mean, look, we have a friend in the crowd tonight that actually was in protest for a minute, and he remembers those days of people calling Bush a fascist, but it felt like it was a minority of people that were kind of anarchist stripes, maybe radical left, as the righties would call it.
I mean, look, I'm a weirdo. I spent, I graduated from college a semester late because I spent all my time like organizing anti-Iraq war protests, right? I mean, like so I was around a lot of people who called Bush fascist a lot, right? And I always thought they had a point, right? Because it's like, look, putting aside the sort of finicky Daniel Bessner questions, if you're just sort of thinking about what's sort of alarming and authoritarian new, there was a lot with Bush, like a lot. Like we had, like in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, there were all of these people who were just rounded up and disappeared, like right after that, right? Who were like, Muslims who were actually often legal residents, all that stuff, right? That happened. They kind of more or less let those people out, but like there was
Eventually
is the key word here, right? Like not right away,
no.
By any means, right? And we had the Patriot Act, which is, I mean, like that was passed so long ago. It's like hard to get people excited about it now, but it's like this is basically, I mean, like legislatively taking away the right, like the Fourth Amendment, basically, right? You can't like unreasonable search and seizure. Like you just, it's like, oh yeah, the government wants to look at your library records, go nuts, right? Like you don't need a real warrant for that. Listen to what you want, right? We had We had indefinite detention. We said, oh, there's this new legal category of people, right? We used to have prisoners of war and then just like regular prisoners, right? Prisoners of war were people you captured off a battlefield. They had all these legal rights under the Geneva Convention, that like there were things that you could and couldn't do to prisoners of war. And then we had regular prisoners who were like arrested for committing crimes and had all these rights that, you know, constitutionally you have to give to criminal defendants. And we said, no, there's this new special category that they're not quite prisoners of war, but we're also not going to charge them with anything. They're this new thing we just made up, enemy combatants.
And they can just sit.
And they can just sit forever, right? I mean, we can send them, you know, there's CIA black sites in Europe, Guantanamo Bay, Abu Ghraib, right? Like they can just sit. And oh, by the way, remember how torture used to be bad? It actually turns out if you call it enhanced interrogation, right? Enhanced interrogation is totally fine, right? We had, I can remember the Bush era, like people like talking heads on like cable news would have these like very civilized arguments about whether it was okay to use.
On MSNBC then?
Yeah, totally. Well, MSNBC actually had, I mean, that's when they like fired Phil Donahue for criticizing the war in Iraq. And they had this whole right-wing pivot, you know, for a while, and then they decided there was like more money in the like lid market, like eventually. But you know that was like, you know, Fox had that other thing cornered.
Well, so, you know, you gotta have the fight.
Yeah.
And everybody can't be agreeing and high-fiving. There has to be some sort of tension.
Yeah, right.
To make money.
So it's like all of this stuff was, you know, Obama, as you kind of mentioned in your intro, you know, some of this stuff he backed off from to some extent, right? Oh, we tortured some folks. Right? Quote, I could never hear the word folks without remembering Obama saying we tortured some folks.
Because if you say it like that, it's nice, right, and neighborly. Right? Like, oh, shucks, Obama.
We did torture some folks.
You didn't mean to, did you? But isn't that part of the propaganda? It's always a guy like, I don't want to shoot that child between the eyes. You gotta. They bombed the platoon.
Yeah, right. It's the creepiest, most evil quote that like hardcore Zionists love from the Golda Meir about like when will the, you know, Palestinian, or she didn't say Palestinians, the Arabs, right? You know, when will the Arabs love their children more than they hate us or whatever, which is like her way of saying it's like, look, why do you keep making us kill these kids, right? Like that's the
look what you made me do.
Yeah, it's totally look what you made me do, right? Like, so it's like, yeah, Obama backed off from some of it, said we're not, you know, it's like, oh yeah, I know that enhanced interrogation was bad, we won't do that anymore, whatever. Although we're also crucially not going to prosecute anybody for it, which, you know.
Yeah, who got prosecuted?
Nobody. Like he said, like Obama said, we're looking forward, not backward. Right, that was like what he said. He was justifying not prosecuting anybody, which I've always thought it'd be fascinating to see.
Is that the impetus of the gaslighting? Is that how it works? Obama's just a boyfriend that just makes me feel bad for.
Baby, why are you talking about the past? Shouldn't we be looking ahead?
But I saw you 5 seconds ago. What fucking that dude? But was it fucking? Was it smiling?
Look, we could relitigate this forever, right? We need to go forward into the future. Yeah, right. Which like sends this huge, unmistakable signal.
Yeah.
That it's like, hey, if a future president ever decides to torture some folks, don't worry, you're not going to get in trouble later, right? I mean, that's what that amounts to. And other things, I mean, he continued, I mean, you know, he actually greatly expanded the drone program, which started under Bush. He killed Anwar al-Awlaki and his son, Abdulrahman al-Awlaki, American citizens. The son was 16 years old. And it was, you know, it's the same way that now we're just supposed to take it on faith that this dude in El Salvador, you know, was really an MS-13 member because that's the, you know, he was wearing the Chicago Bulls hat in just the right way that only MS-13.
But isn't that crazy?
So it's like the same way, right? It's like we're supposed to take it on faith that Anwar al-Awlaki was really like a terrorist because of, he was like posthumously tried by presidential speech.
But even so, like, we were talking about, oh shit.
Oh, that's my phone.
God damn it, bitch. Oh shit, you only had one beer. My God, and a bad hip. I don't even know what to grab. To scare your ass. I don't know what to grab. Damn.
Phone's good.
That's why we don't do this shit live. We do it in our house. So we don't.
Yeah.
Neither one of us got good health care. I don't have no health care. I just gotta go to some odd doctor with a goat in front of his house and hope whatever potion he gives me makes the pain go away.
I managed to stick the chair into this exact little crevice here where this dips off. That was very. I think if I tried a few times.
At least you didn't fart when you did it. That guy's videotaping it. That's going right on YouTube.
Yeah. If I had, like, I really think if I tried a bunch of times to, like, aim for that, I wouldn't have made it in because it's like there's this much. There's an opening in the floor there.
Aren't you glad I didn't bring a camera?
Well, I would.
Well, we can black side his footage after this.
It's like the scene in The Godfather where they, the feds are like taking pictures. They just grab the camera.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I was gonna say before you
did that very impressive thing.
Had
Just
your
did this. That sounds even worse.
Oh, my bad. Did that stunt shit, Super Dave. Even, it's one thing to say, and again, you said this the other day when we were talking about this. I think we were talking about this I feel like we were talking about this off air.
Yeah.
That, when these cats were getting disappeared and, of course, rounded up and deported, there was still a massive thing that had happened on American soil that was very foreign to us with 9/11. We've seen street gangs, and we've seen them be massively more violent and even well put together. And MS-13 is in no way, shape, or form that. I'm sure they do horrible things in their community.
On a very small scale.
Very small scale. And to act as if this is the invasion. That's what he said. We were having an invasion of these Venezuelans. I was like, really? I don't think so. I don't even know any. Like, where are they invading? Just that one apartment complex in Aurora? I think Aurora will be fine. You know what I mean?
Even if it's not, I feel like we can lose Aurora.
Is it the capital city?
No.
It's not. You know all the capitals? Goddamn, you're supposed to one up me here, too? Jesus, lady. You called me fat earlier. You know I have low self-esteem. What the fuck do you think I'm up here for?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like, though, there is still this weird continuity there, right? So, in other words, like, one of the weird things looking back on the Bush era war on terror was that, we'd just been coming out, right? The original end of history, right, was the end of the Cold War, right? So we just finished decades of this standoff with, a rival major world power that was pointing like ICBMs at the United States and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Throughout all of that, right, nobody was like, oh yeah, we can only fight off this threat if we like make it legal to peer into everybody's library records and listen to everybody's phone calls and oh yeah, we need to have this special category of prisoner who doesn't have any rights.
We would have called that fascist, right? That's like the Stasi.
Yeah, totally, right? Nobody felt the need to do any of this stuff. Like everybody thought, yeah, sure, lots of horrible stuff happened, McCarthyism, etc., right? But like that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly we're told, we really need to take away all of these core civil liberties because apparent that like we didn't need to take away fighting the Nazis in World War II. We didn't need to take away, during the decades of Soviet ICBMs pointing at the United States. We need to take them away now because of this, like, we're fighting with this organization of a few hundred people who'd like, in like tribal areas in Pakistan who'd like get it together like once every 5 years to like try to bomb a nightclub or something, right? Like that was the threat that was supposed to justify that. And it's like, now like, you know, so we had that massive come down from like the threat that's supposed to be posed by the Soviet Union to the, you know, which, you know, at least could have, you know, obliterated the United States and, you know, mutually assured destruction, to the threat of Al-Qaeda, right? Which it's like the worst, you know, yeah, 9/11 was horrible. It's also like you could have just like, you know, reinforced the like cockpits and like told you know, told people if you're on a, you know, plane that's being hijacked, don't cooperate, that advice doesn't apply anymore, and called it a day, and done literally nothing else.
Yeah.
And like that still couldn't have been repeated.
I
Right?
mean, traveling in an airplane sucks.
Yeah. So, but it's like you could have done no Patriot Act, no wars, no anything. Just like we're like reinforce the barrier at the cockpit, tell people not to cooperate with hijackers anymore. That's it. And like you pretty much have a guarantee that that thing wouldn't have happened again. You wouldn't even have to make everybody take their shoes
I was
off.
gonna say, I don't have to take off my fucking shoes and keep my toothpaste.
Yeah, all that stuff, right? But then like you have the second come down, because you're right. I mean, it's like, you know, as pathetic as the threat that was supposed to justify all that stuff was, it's like, you know, it's like now we've like gotten down to the point that we're just like, whatever street gang whose name the president remembers, you know, it's like, that's the big threat that's supposed to justify.
Is this naming gangs from the Warriors?
Yeah. People, the baseball furies. They're very bad hombres. Yeah, no, like, yeah, right, but it's like literally, like, yeah, any gang that sounds scary to him, right? Like that's like the big threat that's supposed to justify.
But who is really, like, real talk, it's 2025. I ain't been scared of a gang member in like 30 years. I wear what the fuck I want to wear. Like, who's, like, I don't know where any of y'all live. Y'all might be like, Jay, I live in this gang ass part of town. Where do y'all, is anybody scared of a gang? Like, real talk. You guys are all regular people with regular ass lives.
Somebody asked me if I was like a Crip on.
Somebody asked me, like, Crip?
Yeah, they asked me if I was a Crip, like in, it's just, yeah, they said,
So they asked if you was a Crip?
yeah, they asked if I was a Crip.
Were you Crip walking?
No, I wish. I can't think.
Like, you were just walking?
Yeah, I was just talking to her and she's like, are you a Crip? And I'm like, no, and she's like, well, I'm a, like, she said, she was just
Was she high?
yeah.
You left that very important part of the story out.
She didn't get mad when I said no, she didn't protest about it or anything, so it was like, this is cool, you know, I guess, like, if you can just ask people that now, it's not about
I do want to see the protesting gang member that is upset about your affiliation. If that ever happens, just whip your phone out and start recording that shit. Please send it to me. I'll give you my phone number. I want to see that shit right away. Save that for the personal file. But I haven't been, like, I'm not scared. I got, like, I think my kids here, I don't have my glasses on. I think I saw a beige person. She was waving. There's a beige child. Okay, I don't have my glasses on. Are you scared of gangs? You just nod your head.
Well, what if someone in here is part of one?
Like a real one?
So I'm gonna play it safe.
Oh, so you think one of these people is in a gang? If you're in a gang and you're in here, that's fucking hilarious. Number one. And I don't know what gang that is, like a gang or what. You can take them, honey, if that's the case.
Well,
Depends where you live.
so I wonder though, right? Because it's like, look, I mean, obviously, in all seriousness, to some extent, it does, right? I mean, it's like how worried you are about street crime in general massively depends on like where you live. And
I locked my door when I came to America, though. I made sure when I crossed the border, you know.
All true, but I also wonder. It's like, okay, poor Trump, and who think that it's like all of this, like, you know, sending people with no due process to be locked up in a Salvadorian torture dungeon for the rest of their lives is totally justified because of the, you know, the threat that's posed by Tren de Agua. That, like, I'm sure some of those people do, you know, live in neighborhoods where street crime is a big thing, but I also think it's like, look, you watch a lot of true crime.
I watch too much true crime.
Right? You know what these, like, you know what these shows are like, right? Like, I also think that there's, like, probably a profile of a kind of person who thinks all this stuff is justified because it's such a crisis, for whom it is purely something they watch on TV.
I watch so much true crime that the other night because I sleep with my big sliding door open, so I could listen to the ocean.
It's true.
And feel fabulous. I was like, what if somebody came to my house and tried to kidnap me? And I was like paranoid all night thinking about that. And then I thought,
But you didn't actually close the door.
oh fuck no, I had to get up. I was like, if they came all the way up the hill and past Ben's house, he's got nicer shit than me. I mean, you got a Mac. I got an HP that I got like the cheapest shit from the, what's they call the place, Best Buy?
How are they supposed to know what kind of computer I have?
How would they come in my house? I'm the one black guy on the block.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very, it's very unlikely. I feel very safe that that neighborhood.
You don't think it's gonna happen? That
No.
someone's gonna break in?
Per capita matters.
What's that?
Per capita,
Sure.
like,
Yeah. Per capita matters. I mean, I don't know.
There's like 7 people.
You have to understand.
We're fine.
To give you a little mental image of this, right? Like this is a dirt road on a high hill. You have to it would be quite a trip, right? If you were going up here to do this, and there. Well, actually, when I used to live in that same building, I remember the gate would sometimes be stuck because of tumbleweed. Right, that was a thing.
Yeah.
There have been times on that road that I've been out walking my dog, and I'll see
Ghetto ass horses.
like a horse just standing in the middle of the road. I'm like,
Ghetto ass horses.
is this a wild horse? Does somebody own it? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not what you would call a populated area, right? I'm very unconcerned about the bandits who are gonna.
But when I watch the news in the U.S., which I watch way too much of, and then I follow the news here in the Bay Area, and it's like bipping has struck again, and it's like a whole bunch of black people run into an iPhone store and start taking iPhones that ain't gonna work when they get home. or my favorite ones, it'll be like, and then he was at a gas station, and then there's like, don't go to this gas station. I was like, I've been to that gas station. And then they steal shit out of the car. I'm like, is this real? Because I don't think a lot of that shit is real. Like a lot of these places, I've been there. Maybe I just have that shitty of a car, where the view's like, we're good. That's a 07 Hyundai. That motherfucker got more problems than we got. He ain't even got a pink slip in here. Nah, that motherfucker owe money on this shit too. Nah, leave him be. But I do think that does play into people's fears to some extent. Like, jokes aside, I think we are beat over the head with these images. And I say that because it wasn't but 5 years ago in this very city, people were like, hey, stop beating the shit out of black people, police, and maybe you should take some of that money and put it in other places. To, I'm kind of tired of seeing these homeless people. Can you put a big wall or something up so we don't have to see them? Maybe throw them in prison?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, look, kind of circle back to the idea that like the end of history moment was 2016, right? There was the bad part of that, which was Trump, Brexit, but there was also the good part of that, right? That was Bernie Sanders. That was you had these in both directions, right? You had these major ruptures from politics as usual, right? That the original sort of Fukuyama thing was that this sort of basic combination of liberal democracy and capitalist economics had sort of proved itself to be the thing going forward, and thereafter we kind of fight about the details, but it's not that he literally thought that stuff would stop happening. Right, but they're on a sort of basic ideological level, right? Everything was settled, and I think what that really showed is that it's not, right? I mean the sort of certainly the kind of progressive-y flavor of neoliberalism that we had for a long time in different forms. That kind of liberalism had sort of exhausted a lot of its popular support, or at least enough of its popular support that you had these major challengers, for the first time, right? That there was the challenge from the left that's actually, maybe we do actually need some like real social democracy at least now. And the challenge from the right, which is, you know, noticing some of the same social maladies that inspire the left-wing version, but like telling a story where it's, you know, it's all the fault of like the scary immigrants.
Yeah. That being said, Cal, how much time do we have?
An hour,
Oh, no shit?
50 minutes, 52.
Oh, wow. Jesus.
So,
He's
going down.
yelling at me all the time.
yeah.
Do you want to take some questions from some people for a second? Because this usually goes for longer than we think.
do
Or
you
do you
wanna-
have something you want to say?
Well, let me just say one more thing, then you can do the Montel Williams thing. I know you're reaching for.
I'm just going to put the microphone in front of their face and they're going to ask you a question. They don't want to ask me shit.
I think they do, but anyway.
$5.
So it's like, look, the stuff that you're talking about crime and homelessness and all that, like, is part of that dynamic that led to these sort of big ruptures from kind of reigning like hegemonic liberalism starting in 2016. I mean that like, even like the point you're making about, you know, Black Lives Matter and, you know, sort of San Francisco area politics, you know, does feed into that. 'Cause it's like, look, like we were just talking about this earlier today before the show, right? That like the sort of, that the thing, you know, the reason why police brutality is like a big problem, you know, in the United States is a much bigger problem in the United States than it is in lots of other, you know, developed countries, right? That like if you're sort of telling a story that's primarily about, you know, white supremacy or this or that, right? I mean, I think you're missing the sort of big thing, which is that ultimately militarized policing and locking lots of people up was both financially and politically a cheaper way to manage the social ills that come out of poverty than, you know, expanding the sort of great society welfare state. I mean, that's the stuff that like Cedric Johnson, you know, is writing about.
It's what we've all been saying, kind of maybe since we've been hanging around each other as hard as we do, and influencing each other as much as we do. And I feel like that point gets missed because it's the identity battles that really get in people's emotions and feels, if you say. That gets the vibes all tingly.
No,
right?
totally, right? But this is the theory of the world that, like, I think makes sense to a lot of people, but I think if you're missing that, like, this can seem like this, like, weird, inexplicable swing, right? It's like, how do people used to care so much, right, about police brutality, and now they don't? It's like, look, the thing that the sort of, you know, militarized policing and mass incarceration was kind of a blunt force solution to, didn't go anywhere, right? Like the underlying poverty and extreme inequality that all of this stuff was an attempt to manage didn't go anywhere. So like, I think to the extent that you did get some localities to back off a little bit on some of the extreme policing techniques, although I also think a lot of that's really exaggerated if you look at like police budgets, you know. It was like mostly status quo after 2020 anyway, right? But like to the extent that they did, or it was perceived that they did, right? It's like, look, the social ills didn't go anywhere. And so, you know, people do. I mean, it's like, we can't, I think there's a sort of flippant leftist way of saying like, I mean, you know, I was kind of even doing this earlier, right? When I was making the point about true crime, although that's a whole sort of thing, right? Like I've had.
It's a problem I know. It's a problem.
I've had elderly relatives who, you know.
Wow.
I think Jason is not related to me. I'm not talking about Jason. You know, I think that, you know, do have a sense of like fear about crime that's like out of proportion to what makes sense in their lives.
You know, look, I will defend myself like this.
It's fine to watch true crime.
I grew up. It's not. It's a problem. I know. I need help. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. But man, I can really get into a good Richard Ramirez documentary. I grew up. I'm a Gen Xer, and I grew up in the era of serial killers as celebrity. And I think that's the dark side of it. That a lot of us grew up in an era where we had this thing called tabloid television. A lot of things were changing for young people like us that probably had to babysit ourselves in front of televisions. So a lot of the media that we consumed especially my formative years. I've known who Maury Povich was when he got his first gig on hard copy. You know, I knew who Bill O'Reilly was when he got his big gig on hard copy. Not to say I followed him through Fox, and I was like, yeah, those pores suck. But those people were introduced to me through these quote-unquote news programs that were a little different than the evening news, because of course they don't take on local stories unless wherever I was living had a big local problem. But it was always kind of these weird crime cases that were so salacious that take the place of soap operas because they're cheaper to make. You don't need actors. You just need a couple people to read the news, right? So, you know, I fell for it, just like my favorite memories are 22-minute commercials that people call cartoons, right? Like, I have to admit the capitalist realism that shapes me, and I think the problem is, for a lot of us, is realizing that capitalist realism shaped our worldview, right? And then what happens to our spawn? You know, what are they consuming? She's still here. Oh, shit.
Yeah, look, I mean, but here's the point, right? That it's not entirely just that, oh, people fell for, you know, propaganda or whatever, you know, from the TV. That it's like, you know, look, if you look at polls very consistently, right? You know, working class people of all races do like talk about being very concerned about like street crime and personal safety.
I also grew up in a crimey area and in a crimey time. You know, I don't know how many people here are from the Bay and lived in the Bay in the 80s and 90s. It was, depending on where you lived, it could be loud at night. I'm from a place called Richmond, California. It was rather loud in the evenings where I'm from. So, you know, all this stuff, for me, what I remember most about that era was, the message was that the people that were committing the crime were defective. Right? It was a steady dose of underclass ideology. And I, like many other colored children in my neighborhood, love rap music.
That's right.
And that was a big extension of underclass. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of that stuff is just an extension of underclass ideology, especially the first wave, what we're later going to call gangster rap, was just, we're just telling these stories of the streets. Well, why are these stories happening in the streets? I don't know, just things is broken. And so that still is kind of a narrative that even people like Ibrahim X. Kendi try to twist a little bit and say like, well, I can be the, you know, the translator for you.
Yeah, what are the drums saying?
I speak to them for you, my son.
Yeah, right. No, but it's like, look, you know, I mean, it's crime is actually like a very real social problem. I mean, like it is an indictment of American society that like we have a murder rate and consistently have, right? People will say, like, people love to do the, you know, oh, what are you complaining about? It's not as bad as the 1990s, which, you know, if your memory extends to the 1990s, that's a low bar, right? But like,
no one dropped a drone on your house, right?
Yeah. Nobody like drove a literal tank into the house across the street like the LAPD was doing. So it's like, look, you know, in all those fluctuations, the crime rate, like the rate of violent crime in the United States is insane by first world standards. Like, you know, it's like you go to like most like Western, Northern European countries, and nothing like that happens, right? Now. And, you know, similarly about the you know, the point about homelessness, that it's like that people, it is actually, you know, a hot take. I think it's a problem when society just, you know, deteriorates to the point that a lot of the citizens are like sleeping on benches, right? Like, I don't think that's good. And, you know, people do worry about crime. They do want to be able to take their kids to the park, you know, they do worry about that, right? They have, like, all of that stuff is legitimate, right? The problem is that the rights theory of the case is basically what you were just saying, right? It's like, oh, there are like a lot of defective people, they haven't like beaten them up enough, right? Like that's, and you know, and you need a more compelling narrative in the other direction, right? That it's like, look, no, it's not some weird cultural thing. It's not, you know, genetic. It's not that, you know, people are just, you know, defective, what did Hillary Clinton say, super predators,
Super
right?
predators, yeah.
That's, you know, like, it's, the problem is that the rights theory of the case is basically what you were just saying, right? It's like, oh, there are like a lot of defective people, they haven't like beaten them up enough, right? Like that's, and you know, and you need a more compelling narrative in the other direction, right? That it's like, look, no, it's not some weird cultural thing, it's not, you know, genetic, it's not that, you know, people are just, you know, defective, what did Hillary Clinton say, super predators,
Super
right?
predators, yeah.
That's, you know, like, that we live in a profoundly economically unequal society, we have very little support for people at the bottom of society, and like, these are all the social ills that come with that, right? But like, the left has done a really bad job of making that case. I think oftentimes, especially because on a local level, people can do things like get, you know, progressive DAs elected, right? Like that's
it's too soon, Ben. We're in San Francisco. It's too soon.
You know, there is like a structural problem here, though, right? Because it's like you can't, if the left isn't strong enough to actually create a more economically equal society and do something about the material roots of these problems, but it is sometimes locally for a while strong enough to like, you know, to get like DAs elected, then like when, you know, then like they become very easily scapegoated for the continued existence of those problems, and you become
But what
discredited.
DA has ever, in the history of DAs, been responsible for homelessness and crime?
Harvey Dent.
Yeah, there's.
Or Harvey Dent. but I mean, to that level.
Before or after he became Two-Face?
Yes.
Okay.
But you know, when you think about,
No, for sure, it's crazy, but I'm saying that it's like, it's a very, I think that what you're saying is true. I think it's a sort of much harder case to make,
yeah,
right, politically, that, you know, because people can see the crime, homelessness, shoplifting, whatever, they can see that, it's tangible. If the best thing you can say is, okay, but it's not really my fault, right? Like that's not gonna take you very far, right? So I think that's like what creates the opening for the right-wing demagogic story about like what the problem is.
But would you agree though
which
that
Trump has really ridden high off of?
But would you say the reason why he's able to ride high off that, because he doesn't have to do much, right? You don't have to do anything when, look, we're gonna elect this guy that's saying things that we've never heard before.
Yeah.
I want a cashless bail. We're actually gonna prosecute rogue cops for bad behavior. Let's take out corrupt figures in this office. That's what people want to hear. Ultimately, people want action, right? I'm sure there's San Francisco residents in here that probably voted for Chase Aboudi or wanted someone like him in their city, right? You want people in that office in particular to look at law enforcement, to look at mass incarceration differently, because the one thing I will say positive about Michelle Alexander's book, and I don't have much positive to say about that book, is that it did change the conversation.
Yeah.
We did have to talk about mass incarceration as a failure, right? And to start electing these people, even when AOC got elected, I think we were all kind of like, oh wow, no shit. But it also felt like once those people got in office, then the people that worked so hard, that did the campaigning, that knocked on doors, not all of them, job's done.
Yeah.
Cat's in there, job's done. It's like the job is never done because we're fighting power.
And in particular, I think the problem is, because obviously you're right? It's like it's ridiculous to think that the main reason why, you know, there's, you know, a mentally ill person sleeping in the park, why, you know, people have, you know, done a bunch of break-ins, they did a big sensational story about it in the 11 o'clock news, whatever, is because of who is or isn't the DA, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like that has very little control over that. But the problem is, I think that when the same way that's like, look, Trump doesn't actually need to do anything about the crime rate, right? Like to like satisfy the people who want this stuff. Trump just has to be really performatively cruel in a way that like people who want tough on crime can look at it and say, oh, see, he's doing something about it, right? Like at least he's trying. And I think the flip side of that is that when you have somebody who comes into office saying, I'm going to scale back, right, the cruelty of the criminal justice system, then I think it's very easy for people to connect the dots and say, see, you scaled it back. That's why all this stuff is happening.
Well, I told you about that time I was in Rosarito, and I had a shirt that said like I always wear stuff in California on it because fuck yeah, I love where I'm from. And this guy was like, California is where all the crime is. And I was like, or San Francisco. I had a San Francisco shot. He's like, San Francisco, that city's a mess. And I just, thank you, sir. That's where all the crime is. And I was like, I don't know what that means. Like, what do you mean that's where all the crime is? Like, I can walk around at night and feel pretty good. I'm not buff or anything.
It was really funny that this conversation's happened in Rosarito.
Well, he wasn't Mexican. He was like a white guy.
I think it is.
Yeah. That would have been even funnier if a Mexican guy was yelling.
Senor! San Francisco! That's where all the crime is!
Muy malo! Muy malo! No, and right at that moment, I did that thing that, because you like bitching at people online, whereas for some reason, I closed my computer. I was like, well, tell me more about what you think of San Francisco. Well, and you know what he said? It's that DA.
Oh, God.
He let all the criminals go. I was like Batman? But there's a way in which we view good and bad behavior, right? And I think that's a problem. Oh, shit. I need you to move gingerly. You scare me like that. All these, we got company in the house. But there is this kind of, and I wrote about it in that thing that's coming out soon. Finally. Where I think there's this way that we view good and bad people that does kind of lead us down these fashy binary roads, especially when it comes to tough on crime law. And I do think it starts with behaviors, right? And people having to fit in these perfect boxes. Like the one thing I hate, and I think this comes from working with the unhoused, I think this comes from living with a bunch of rogue characters in a warehouse and having rogue characters in my family, is that...
Lionel's right here.
Not him. My brother's here, by the way. He's not a rogue character. He's a very handsome young man.
I wish.
Wow. I was trying to help you out. Jesus, don't emo your way out of all this. But I forgot what I was saying. Doucher. What was I saying?
All right.
Rogue characters.
Thank you, young man. But people have to fit kind of within this perfect box, and that was my big problem with Michelle Alexander's book, is because she paints this picture of the criminal justice system as this place where Leon just had to sell crack because he had to feed his family. Maybe that's a few of them, but sometimes people just want shoes. Sometimes people just want to act bad. There's shit people in this room have done that is illegal. They drank when they were too young, probably got behind the wheel when they were drinking when they were too young. They probably did a bunch of drugs, some of them went up their nose. There's some bad shit everyone in this room has done, and for whatever reason, probably didn't have to go to jail for it. Probably didn't get in trouble for it, right? Depending on where you went to school. I got to go to school because my father worked in a different school district than where I lived. I got to go to school where when I got in a fight with my classmate, my cousin, who also went to the school because her dad also worked in the district, nepotism, told the principal, who called my father, and that person's father was Brandon Johnson, who went to high school with me. We got called into the principal's office, and our fathers were there with the vice principal, and the vice principal just sat there, and my dad said, well, the principal said that we can take y'all to the Y and y'all can fight. You can fight. Or you can shake hands like men and settle this. And of course, we were punks and we shook hands. But the moral to that story is, we were able to do that. We didn't live with our fathers. Crazy, right? if that story's told by Lee Daniels, right? My absentee father is a problem.
That's right.
But my absentee father got me into a school that if I would have went to the other school, my cousin that went to the other school, I was supposed to go to a school called Richmond High. Her first day of school, someone got shot in front of her, and their brain matter was on her shirt. There was police at her school. You got in a fight at that school, the police broke it up. I get in a fight, my dad comes and tells me, stop being a punk. My cousin goes to another school, she gets somebody's brain matter on her shirt. We had very different lives, and very different, well, she actually is doing way better than me. Fuck her, but not that she's really cool. But the point is, there are kids that go to these schools that don't have those same opportunities. And I think that's like extremely important because we forget sometimes that it is kind of that genetic luck of the draw that Lionel Myles was my pop and was like, I don't want you to go to that school. You know, you can go to this, I think he called it a white people school, you'll be fine. And it was. Made good white people friends and the rest is history. But I did. You've met some of them. But I don't believe in perfect criminals, and I don't believe in perfect victims, especially when you think about like spouse. Like you watch these true crime things about spousal abuse. You know, the woman's always like cowering in a corner and working in a homeless shelter. They're not cowering in a corner, but they still don't need to be hit.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
But I think when people see the way things really unfold, it really fucks with their reality of how this shit really works. Because I think we want really good and bad victims and perpetrators.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I always remember kind of during, pre-2020, right, like kind of during the years of build up to the Black Lives Matter moment, kind of Ferguson onward, that phase of things, right? I remember there was this, cycle for a long time, right, that they would somebody would be shot by cops, it would dominate the news for a few days, something would come out about the victim and something they'd done wrong in their lives. And people like, I guess I'll just throw Franny under the bus, my former mother-in-law. They're like, he was no angel. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, are laws only supposed to protect angels?
Exactly.
That's
I don't want to live in a world where people get stuffed under a jail for petty bullshit, and to see all of the advancements that we got over all these, people have been pushing back for 30 years on these tough on crime laws, and we're rolling them all the way back for less shit. Because you stole some lipstick from a Stevie S? Do you ever hear the numbers people are saying for these crime lords? They're like, and a crime ring was busted in East San Diego County. She made $475 a decade selling stolen shit.
I mean, taking it back to the Trump, the Trump question we started with. I mean, it's like there are all these people now who are being deported, who are like, foreign students on student visas, green card holders, without even getting back to down to the most disturbing stuff where people are literally being arrested for writing newspaper op-eds.
That's crazy. Yeah.
But it's without even going there, right? It's there are all these people who are legal residents on, foreign student visas, etc., who are being deported because they had a DUI 2 years ago. Because, there was a domestic violence call, 3 years ago, and it's still on the record, right? It's stuff like that, right? And so it is, and again, I think that sort of basic point about okay, hold on, are only angels supposed to have rights, right?
Yeah.
Really gets to it, because it's look, man, if we started somehow finding every American citizen who committed equivalent crimes and throwing them in a dungeon somewhere, right? There'd be much less traffic.
Or at least here. Cal, how much time do we have?
28 minutes.
Can we ask some questions to the audience?
Go crazy.
Okay. I can do that.
You have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive post-games on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.